In today's class, we will concentrate on the assessment of income of companies. In previous class, we learned the basic rules, but we highlighted the assessment of individuals. But the rules are mostly same regarding the admissible expenses, inadmissible expenses, which you need to adjust with the net profit disclosed in the financial statements. So in assessment of companies, the rules are mostly similar with the assessment of individual or sole proprietorship business. Uh, we will not cover the assessment of partnership firms. We are covering assessment of individual business and assessment of companies. So in assessment of companies, we need to recognize that company assessment is one of the most complicated tasks because from the company's financial statements, you can easily acknowledge that how vast the financial accounting particulars of or financial transactions of companies are. And you need to have a very good knowledge, not only in the financial reporting standards. In addition to that, if you work in the tax department, not only you will be working in tax department, if you work in other departments also, you have to have a knowledge and you have to understand that how the tax department is preparing the tax statements, because your transaction or your department may have some connection with the statements prepared by the tax department. So we need to recognize that in addition to financial reporting standards for assessment of companies, for assessment of business, we also need to have a very good knowledge in the tax standards. So main issues what we need to address, that is kind of which income will be included in the assessment of companies. Companies may have uh, lots of income. It's not like that all income will be part of the assessment of company's income. And we also need to recognize that which income are not assessable. That means which income you can exclude from the assessable income. And also there may have some implication for tax rebate. Tax rebate in a sense that your tax rate will get reduced for doing some expenditures or for having some activities in specific fields. So in that sense, you will get some rebate, and we need to learn about this tax rebate consequence and the rules for tax rebate. And you are much familiar with the term CSR, corporate social
Responsible.
responsibilities. Okay, so companies are very warm in expressing their CSR activities in their financial statements, also in the newspapers, that how benevolent they are or how kind they are to the people of the country. They are kind to the affected people. They are kind to the nation. The companies explain, the companies also allocate a specific section in their annual reports for explaining the CSR activities. Okay, so you may feel that CSR is a part of company's benevolent task. Obviously, it is part of company's benevolent task, but from the tax perspective, you have to recognize that there is a tax motivation. There is a tax motivation behind the huge amount of expenditures by the companies in the name of CSR. So tax motivation, you probably already have recognized that you can be able to reduce your tax burden by having the CSR expenditures. So we also need to look at the CSR rules. CSR rules governed in the tax standards. And we also need to understand the tax rates applicable for the companies. And you, from the very beginning lecture, probably you can recall that Bangladesh is one of the countries in the South Asia which has the highest corporate tax rate.
Yes,
So
sir.
we need to recognize it. Companies are trying to convince the government, convince the tax authority to reduce their corporate tax rate. So we also need to look at the corporate tax rate of different companies applicable. And also we need to understand that sometimes you see that companies repatriate their dividend. Repatriate their dividend, I mean that in it is common in multinational companies which have their local operation in our countries. So when they repatriate the dividend, which will be repatriated to the parent company, there will have some tax consequences. So for avoiding some tax consequences, they try to they try to change they try to have a strategic policy that how much of the dividend I will repatriate, how much I will not repatriate, how much I will make reinvestment here. So these are related to tax, that if you see that there are much more tax burden if you repatriate the dividend to the parent company, I mean outside of Bangladesh. In that case, you need to have some strategic thinking that how can you address these issues. Then so we will try to see these things we just have mentioned in today's session. Not all these issues. We will try to see how much we can cover in today's class. If you look at the course outline, you will see there are all more than 3 classes, more than 3 regular classes have been allocated for the assessment of companies. So from that allocation, you can recognize that how worthy or how importance or how much weight we are giving to the assessment of companies in this business taxation course. Okay. So I'm not trying to ask you that do you recognize company or you know which is company, which is not company. Okay. But we need to just recall or we need to refresh our mind to recognize that uh, the Company Act, which is applicable in our country, the 1994, has been updated many times. The latest update I can't recall, but so far I can recall that it has been amended up to 2015. If you can look at the BD laws, you will see that the amendment is in which date or in which year. Okay. So simple definition of the company is that the establishment which has been set up based on this Company Act, that is known as company according to the law. But at the same time, from the tax perspective, we also need to understand that uh, in addition to this, the company can also come into existence by the nationalization order of the government. You see that sometimes government issue ordinance to nationalize some private entities. So in that case, companies can come into existence. It is very common in the financial market, financial sector. You see some banks, financial institutions have been nationalized over time by the government. So companies can come into existence from this nationalization. And company also can come from the alteration of the partnership firm. If the partnership firms have decided that they want to uh, they want to change their business and they want to change the legal entity from the partnership to the company, it can also happen. And in addition to that, if it is like that, the companies are uh, the entity about which we are recognizing that whether it is a company or not, but the National Board of Revenue has declared that this should be a company. In that case, we need to recognize that entity as a company. So in this way, in the tax standard, we recognize an entity as a company. And from the tax rate, you can recall from the earlier chapters that we see different tax rate for different types of company. We see different tax rate for banks and financial institutions. Okay, banks and financial institutions. Tax rates are different. We also see the tax rates are different for merchant banks. We also see tax rates are different for uh, mobile telecommunication companies. We also have seen mobile telecommunication. We also have seen the tax rates are different for tobacco manufacturing companies. And we also see the tax rates are different for general companies. So from the tax rate perspective, we see this kind of classification. But also from apart from this tax rate perspective, there is also another perspective that how profit and loss should be computed according to the tax standard. There will be some classification, and that classifications are kind of that how profit and loss will be computed for insurance business, how profit and loss will be computed for the companies which are engaged in the petroleum exploration in our country, and the companies which are in the in the mineral business but not the company involved in oil and gas companies. So in that case their profit and loss computation will be different. So these are some additional categories, and these details have been explained in the schedule. Can you recall in the income tax ordinance we have some schedules? So fourth, fifth, fifth schedules. These schedules enumerate the standards applicable for the profit and loss computation for the insurance business, for the business which are involved in the exploration of oil and gas, and the business which are in the business of exploration but not the oil and gas. So these are some classification, not much important from the exam perspective, but from the tax perspective, it is important. And the thing is that uh, we need to understand the residential status of the company as like the individual individual residential status. You can recognize from the residential status session that we mentioned that if the control and management of a company is situated within the Bangladesh territory, in that case, that company will be considered as the residential company in Bangladesh. Okay. So if it is like that, that there is a company which has local operation in Bangladesh, but there is a multinational company, but that company control and management is solely operated from a country which is not Bangladesh. In that case, that company will not have the residential status. And if it is like that, the company has purely established or purely has been set up in the Bangladesh by following the income tax, the Company Act 1994, and taking the registration from the which company, which entity is responsible for giving registration to the companies, you know?
Sir, register of joint stock company.
Okay, thanks. So that entity you have, from that entity you have taken license. In that case, you will be recognized as a company. So in that case, when you are taking license exclusively from the register of joint stock companies of Bangladesh, in that case, your obviously your control and management is within this country. Then submission of return that you are supposed to. You means you are a company now. You are not individual. You are supposed to submit the income tax return. But the thing is that when you will have to submit your income tax return, if it is like that, your uh, income tax, your financial looks like this, January to December. In that case, your due date for submission of income tax return is the 15th day of the 7th month following the closing of your income year. 15th day of the 7th month from the closing of your income year. From the closing of your income year, which month is the 7th month? Which month is the 7th month here?
So July.
July will be the 7th month. In that case, what will be your deadline?
So 15th of July.
15th of July will be the deadline for submitting income tax return. You see the, have you seen, recognize that there's a difference between the deadline applicable for the individual SSC and the company SSC?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the thing is that, can you recall that we used to follow some specific forms for submitting income tax return for individual SSC? We have some specific forms for individual SSC. Now, you will ask me that whether there is any specific forms applicable for the companies. The answer is yes, there are specific forms for companies to be submitted to submit their income tax return. That is 11, this one. You see, return company IT income tax. It is not information technology, it is income tax, right? You see this one?
Yes, sir.
Okay, my cursor here, I'm opening this. You see return of income for a company as defined under clause 20 of section 2. Got it? So where the company has been defined in the income tax ordinance, section 2, clause 20. Okay, so you see it is different from the individual income tax return form.
Yes, sir.
Okay, it is similar, but it is different. Not completely different, but it is it has some common structure. You see some similarities with the individual income tax return form. There are some similarities, but when you will be a company SSC, the number of required documents, the number of financial the transactions you have to address in the income tax return will be huge. Okay, so in company there is a separate department for dealing with these issues, for dealing with the income tax return submission and preparation of the tax statement. Okay, now the next issue is that can you recall the setup and carry forward of losses from the individual perspective?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I'm not repeating the purpose of setup and carry forward of losses. It is also applicable for the company SSC. So when companies see that they have loss from a specific income source or a specific business, it is permitted that what can they do? They can set off their loss. They can set off their loss, and they can also carry forward the loss by following the rules applicable. And there are similarities with the rules applicable in case of individual SSC set off, and there is also similarities in the carry forward applicable for individual SSC. Can you recall what was the rule applicable in case of if you face loss from the speculative business?
স্যার অনলি স্পেকুলেটিভ বিজনেসই ইউজ করতে হবে এটা লসটাকে ক্যারি ফরওয়ার্ড করতে।
Okay. What about the set off?
So set off your same.
Okay, thanks. Okay. So you need to recognize that in case of business also, if business has some speculative business, they are not permitted to set off their loss against any regular business. They have to look for some other speculative businesses in which they have gain, and they have to adjust the losses against that the gain from other speculative business. And you also need to see what about the capital gain, and you also need to see what about the unabsorbed depreciation, and mostly similar to the assessment of individual. That's why I'm not stressing that part here. And one thing that is different from the individual assessment, that is in company assessment, company are supposed to submit a separate return which is known as withholding tax return. So what does it mean, or what do we understand by withholding tax return? That is the return. Let me give you some background, and then in that case it will be easier for you. Okay, say company is Robi. So the company is charging a good amount of taxes deducted at source from their employees when it is paying salary to their employees. When the Robi is paying salary to its employees, Robi is charging, not Robi is charging, Robi is collecting TDS from its employees' salary. Have we got the question? On behalf of the tax authority, Robi will be responsible for deduct a certain percentage of the salary in the name of TDS.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So it will be continued in the whole year, because in whole year Robi is paying payment to different sources, and not only employees. Can you recall that if you pay something to contractor for getting some work done, you are supposed to make TDS?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. If Robi hires some contractor for getting work done, who is responsible for charging, for collecting the TDS? Robi?
Robi.
Okay. So that means in the whole year, Robi is collecting some TDS from different transactions, right? On behalf
Yes,
of
sir.
the
The contractor.
contractor, collecting
NBR.
Government,
taxes
sir.
on
On
behalf
behalf
of
of the government.
NBR, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
NBR.
on
Yes, sir.
behalf of NBR. So Robi has to furnish a document. Robi has to furnish a document to the NVR at a specific point of time that I have deducted this amount for this transaction on this date. The transaction value of this amount is TDS, and I'm paying this TDS to you using this challan. Can you recall the challan? The document which...
Yes, sir. Challan.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
TDS, sir.
Okay. So not only TDS, when you will be going for paying taxes, or when you will be going for paying any charges, okay, when you will be going for paying any government charges, you will see that there are challans available. Okay. Specifically, it is more applicable in case of tax payment. So TDS also, TDS is also part of tax payment, right? TDS is
Yes, sir.
also part of tax payment. So the thing is that the rule is that you have to submit this return, which is the withholding tax return, which includes the information about what? About the TDS you have collected from the from different transactions you have incurred, and you have to submit this income tax, submit this withholding tax return 2 times in a year. 2 times in a year, and it is to be submitted half yearly by the 31st day of January and 31st day of July. 31st day of January and 31st day of July, you have to submit it. So if it is like that, you have this transaction at the point of time, say September 2020. In that case, you are supposed to show this TDS, show this transaction in the withholding tax return you are going to submit in the January 31 of which year? Of the following year, 2021. So let me check that whether there is any specific form prescribed by the NVR for submitting the withholding tax. Where is this? It is disturbing. There are forms, and let me check. You see, return withholding taxes. This is the document, return of withholding taxes. Have you understood the purpose of this?
স্যার আরেকবার একটু বললে বেটার হতো উইথহোল্ডিং এর বিষয়টা।
You are collecting some tax deducted at source on behalf of the tax authority from different transactions. So what can be those transactions? You see, you are paying salaries to your employees. You are responsible for deducting TDS from the salaried employees. You are trying to make a contract with the contractors. You are supposed to submit the, you are supposed to make the TDS, right? You already have mentioned about this too. You see, it is based on section 50. Section 50 about the salaries, but what I'm trying to attract your attention, that is, you see that the number of persons from which tax withheld. Say Robi has 200 employees. So from how many employees Robi has charged? Not Robi has charged, it is actually charged by NVR. Robi is just collecting, okay, or Robi is somehow deducting, okay, and Robi will be responsible for transferring this amount to the NVR account later, okay. And you see amount of tax withheld. So which is the tax deducted at source from the pay perspective? I mean the person who is receiving the income or who is receiving the salary, but from the person who is collecting this, from that person, from that entity's perspective, that is known as amount of tax withheld. Have we got it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you see a good number of transactions here, and you see rental value of vacant land, plant, or machinery. Can you recognize that I mentioned that when you are a commercial property tenant, that means you are a tenant, you are a tenant of a commercial property, commercial house property. You are responsible for making TDS on your rental
Yes,
payment.
Yes, sir. বলেছিলেন, sir.
So that is here. Okay, and you see also the companies spend a good amount of money for making advertising, and from that expenditure they are responsible for making TDS. Okay, and you also see companies companies pay dividend, not companies earn dividend. Companies pay dividend. Companies also earn dividend by investing in the market or by investing in other companies. But here the dividend, what you are seeing, that is the dividend paid by the company to the shareholders of the company. But when they are making payment of dividend to the shareholders, what they are doing, they are taking out a portion of the dividend in the name of TDS. But can the company keep that TDS with themselves? They cannot do that. They have to transfer it to the tax authority. So what you company is supposed to do? Company is supposed to show this TDS, what they have collected from the dividend payment, and they have to disclose it in the statement. Statement for what? Statement for tax withhold or withholding tax. Okay. So
Yes,
in
sir.
this way, you have to furnish this document. Okay. So without further ado, on the withholding tax return, let me continue for the next part, that is the advance payment of taxes. Can you recall we learned about the advance payment of taxes in case of individual SSC? Can you recall a flowchart?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay. So in case of company, what is the rule? That when company will be responsible for paying advance payment of taxes, is it the way that you are a company, you are always responsible for paying advance taxes? The answer is no. First of all, if it is observed that in the latest assessed income, latest assessed year or latest assessment year, your assessable income or your assessed income exceeds 600,000 taka. 600,000 taka. In that case, you are supposed to pay advance taxes. Now, the question is when you will pay the advance taxes. If your income, assessed income exceeds this in the last assessment year, in that case, you are supposed to pay the assessment year from the current income year, and the dates are similar. Can you recall the advance payment tax date for individual SSC?
স্যার 4টা কোয়ার্টারের মাঝখানে মেবি।
Right. Okay. So the dates are similar in case of company advance payment of taxes by the company. I'm not mentioning the date. You will check that which are these dates. Okay. So there is an exception. If you are a company like BATB, like JTI, you know these companies?
Yes, sir.
What about this?
The Japan Tobacco International.
Okay. Are you consumer of this company?
No, sir.
Okay. Anyone related to yourself who is consumer of this company?
No, sir.
Okay, okay, that is good. We don't want to be consumer of these companies. We'll talk about these companies more later when we'll talk about CSR expenditure. Okay. So what I'm trying to mention here, in case of advance payment of taxes, that don't mind. I'm just was making fun. Okay. In case of tobacco manufacturing companies, on their net sales, only in case of tobacco manufacturing companies, on their net sale, 3% must be equal to their advance payment of taxes. I mean, the amount of advance payment of advance taxes, what they will pay, must be equal to how much? 3% of their net sale. And the consequence of paying less amount of taxes will be similar to individual SSC. You probably can recall that if it is like that, the amount of taxes what you have paid in with return and the amount of TDS you already have paid. If you sum up this total, and if it is observed that it is less than the taxes you have paid, if it is like that, you have, it is the total. If it is like that, your advance taxes is greater than 75% of these taxes you have paid or you are supposed to pay in total, what you will get? Penalty or reward?
Sir, 10% interest penalty.
You have paid more or less in advance
So I have-
taxes?
I have paid more.
You have paid more. In that case, you should expect reward or penalty?
So reward.
তার কিছু তো না 100% পার করলে রিওয়ার্ড না নাকি?
No, it is not 100%, it is 75%. Recall from the individual advance tax. Can you recall this 75%?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If it is like that, the final assessed tax and 75% of final assessed tax is less than the taxes you have paid in the form of advance taxes. In that case, you will get reward. Reward is similar in case of individual advance tax payment. That is the 10% of the 10% interest. Can you recall? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. What will happen if it is just the opposite?
There will be penalty on 10%
how much?
simple interest. 10%.
10%.
Simple interest.
10% penalized হবে.
Okay. Now we are trying to concentrate on the applicable tax rate for the companies.
Sir,
Yeah.
যখন আমরা অ্যাডভান্স ট্যাক্স আলোচনা করতেছিলাম তখন মানে আপনাকে যখন জিজ্ঞেস করছিলাম তখন বলছিলেন যে রিওয়ার্ড ইজ নট ফিক্সড, মানে রিওয়ার্ড আসলে দেয়া হবে কিনা সেটাও নির্ভর করে হচ্ছে আমার যিনি ট্যাক্স অথরিটিতে যিনি থাকবেন তার উপরে, তাই না? মানে পেনাল্টিতে তো হচ্ছে স্পেসিফিক যে আমাকে দিতেই হবে। আমি যদি less than 75% পে করি তাহলে I will be penalized definitely, but the reward is not.
You probably asked me that in case of total tax, if it is like that, you have not considered the you have not considered the tax rebate or investment tax credit facilities and you have paid more taxes than the amount what you should pay, right? Okay, you probably asked me that question.
Yes, sir.
So later years you have recognized that you did this mistake, you would have to pay less amount of taxes. In that case, is it will it be given to you the opportunity to revise your tax statement and to get the money back? Can you recall?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So for that question, I answered that is in that case that will be dependent on the decision taken by the DCT. Okay. But
Okay,
in case of advance payment of taxes, we mentioned differently. If your advance payment of taxes is greater than 75% of your final assessed taxes, in that case, you will be given interest as reward from the tax authority. And the opposite is true for when you will be penalized for paying less from the 75% of the assessed taxes.
স্যার আমার কোশ্চেনটা হলো মানে আমার যতটুকু মনে আছে 75% এর নিচে হলে পেনালাইজড হবে, ঠিক আছে, কিন্তু 75 থেকে 100 পর্যন্ত কোনো পেনালাইজেশন অপশন নেই। 100 যদি পার করে তারপরে রিওয়ার্ড।
No.
আচ্ছা স্যার আমি চেক করব তাহলে।
It is about 75%. I mean, the rule is you have to check that whether it is more than 75% or less than 75% of the assessed taxes. Okay, if it is more than the 75% of assessed taxes, what is more than 75% of assessed taxes? The advance amount taxes what you have paid in advance. If you have paid more than 75% of the assessed taxes, in that case you will be rewarded. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay. The next thing what we are trying to discuss, that is the applicable tax rate for the companies. In case of companies, we probably have seen some applicable tax rate in the very beginning chapter. You probably can recall that for private companies, tax rates are higher. For publicly listed companies, tax rates are generally lower. So that is one motivation why companies should get publicly listed. And in addition to the tax rate, what we need to address, that is, we already have mentioned about the minimum tax, and we already showed an example that when the regular calculation of taxes is greater than the minimum taxes, you need to pay which tax, regular or minimum?
Regular.
You need to pay the regular. I mean, the greater is to be paid always. Okay. And regardless of the profit and losses and the companies, whatever the status is, companies in general are liable to pay minimum 0.6% of their gross receipt as minimum tax. So you'd ask what items will include in the gross receipt. It includes the amount you have received by selling goods or providing services. It also includes you have earned by rendering services. You have earned some additional fees by rendering services. It also includes any types of other receipts you have considered as income. So we need to, the company need to pay minimum tax of 0.6%.
এটা কি টার্নওভারের উপর, মানে গ্রোস রিসিপ্টটা?
I have mentioned 3 items.
এই তিনটাই শুধু?
Yeah, in addition, yeah, you see the amount of you have received by selling goods, it is not turnover.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now,
স্যার তিনটা আইটেম আরেকবার বলবেন, সেলিং গুডস আর দুইটা?
Selling goods, providing services, and any other income you receive, which has not been included in the first 2.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So this rates is different for 2 type of companies. Minimum tax rate, that rate is higher. Can you speculate which type of company this rate should be higher?
So tobacco manufacturing,
telecom operator, tobacco.
Okay. For tobacco, this minimum tax rate is 1%. And for mobile operator company, it should be higher than tobacco or lower than tobacco?
Higher than tobacco.
Lower than tobacco.
Lower হবে।
so equal tobacco, most probably.
Okay. you are capitalizing all the options available. You are not keeping any option left. Okay. It is 2%. Now, what do you think? What you would conclude by looking at 2 rates only? What you would say?
Sir,
I mean, your general opinion that you see the minimum tax rate for mobile operator companies higher than the minimum tax rate for tobacco manufacturing companies. What would you say, that how can you justify this number?
মোবাইল
স্যার
অপারেটরদের
মোবাইল কোম্পানি
বিজনেস বেশি বড়,
নরমালি লাভ অনেক বেশি হয় স্যার,
পুরো বেশি সেল করে টাইপের আর কি।
Okay. So greater in terms of what? I mean, you have to compare that they
customer
are
base.
গ্রোস রিসিপ্ট,
gross receipt. Gross receipt is much more higher in case of mobile manufacturing,
Operating
mobile
company.
service providing companies. Okay, any other justification you want to convince us? Any other?
No, sir.
Okay. So let's review some corporate tax rate. Probably you have already seen this is of the latest 2020-21. From your text, you would see the applicable tax rate for 2019-20 assessment year, but we just like to see the applicable tax rate for assessment year 2020-21. You see the publicly traded companies which are not listed in the stock exchange. In that case, their tax rate is 32.5%. It is for the general category of company. Can you give me an example of this kind of company? Anyone?
আর কিছু ব্যাংক আছে খুব সম্ভবত এমন।
Bank? For banks, the rates are different. Just think of a company which is not publicly traded and which is not also bank, financial institution, tobacco manufacturing, or what should I say, other special category of companies.
Sir, Purbani Fashions Limited.
Which one?
Purbani Fashions Limited.
Okay, that means it is a private limited company, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that company is not listed in the stock exchange. For that company, tax rate is 32.5%. Now, what about if it would get publicly traded? In that case, it is 25%. Have you seen the motivation for getting listed in the publicly, getting listed in the stock exchange company?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if you would ask that why Robbie has got motivation, okay, we would say about Robbie later. Okay. You see this, we probably
So
have
this
mentioned
20
it.
sir,
Yeah.
this 25% for how many years?
25% for how
Yes.
many years? It will continue.
Oh.
It will continue unless NBR has decided to change this rate. Okay, this is
Alright,
not
sir.
applicable for a specific number of years. Okay, but there are some advantages which are applicable for a specific number of years. Say, if this kind of company, which was private limited company, say, let me tell about a company which has recently got listed. That is, have you heard about the Lovelo ice cream?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that company name is Tofika Food and Tofika Food, probably Tofika Food. Okay, so that company faced the tax rate of 32.5% because that company was not publicly listed. But if this company get listed, this company will have the 25%, and this company has got listed in this year 2021. So if that company issued at least how much of their capital?
20%.
20% of their capital in the IPO in that year, recognize it, in that year, they will get 10% rebate. They will get 10% rebate.
10% rebate.
So in that case, their applicable tax rate will be reduced by 10%. Okay. And in case of bank, insurance, and financial institutions, except the merchant and investment bank. Okay. So the merchant banks has a special consideration in case of tax rate classification. If these bank financial institutions are publicly traded, what is the tax rate? Their tax rate is 37.5%. Their tax rate is 37.5%. And in case if the company is a foreign company, in that case their rate will be 40%. If the also if the company is not publicly traded, which kind of company? This kind of company. If this company are publicly traded, in that case it is 37.5%. If these are not publicly traded, how much is the rate? 40%. And in case of foreign companies, the rate is also 40%. I mean, if the companies say Habib Bank, the company is Commercial Bank of Ceylon, for them their tax rate is 40%. And for merchant bank, the tax rate is 37.5% of which income? 37.5% of which income?
Sir, gross receipt.
No. Why gross receipt? Their taxable income. How you get the taxable income? By excluding all expenses, including interest expense. By subtracting all expenses, including interest expense. Can you recall the EBT?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that EBT
It's an EBT উপরেই.
Yeah, that EBT calculation in financial accounting is different from the tax accounting. Though you know how to calculate EBT from the financial accounting standards, but at the same time you also need to recognize that some expenses, some income which have been recognized in financial accounting may be different in case of tax accounting. Okay, that's why we need to prepare two statements, at least one from the tax perspective, another one from the financial accounting standard perspective. Okay, and you see this category of companies, their tax rate is 45%. Is this tax rate staggering? 45%. It means out of 100 taka taxable taxable income, 45% is to be paid to the government. Okay, and what about the wireless telecommunication company?
It's the same, 45%.
45%. So as these two rates are same, what would you say? From this similar rate, which point you can raise that their tax rate should be similar? Other things remaining same. We are not inviting other issues for
ইউজেস কনজাম্পশন অনেক বেশি এই দুটারই.
Yeah. Okay. But what I would say personally, that is government feels that wireless telecommunication companies are equally harmful like the tobacco manufacturing companies.
These are both are addictions.
Okay, that's why they like to get more taxes, but that is just my personal opinion, not to be accepted. Okay, so but in case of wireless telecommunication company, if they issue at least 10%, you see this is different from this 20%.
Yes, sir.
In case of mobile telecommunication company, as these companies are has a very what should I say, has a very high capital base. I mean, you see the Robi is now the #1 company in terms of what?
Paid up capital.
Yeah, in terms of I mean, in case of listed companies, Robi is now the largest company in terms of its capital. in terms of its market capitalization, also in terms of the capital it has issued in the market. Market capitalization is different, but you see that Robi has issued insignificant, it is not exactly insignificant, but that is, I can't right now recall what is the percentage, but that percentage is close to 10%. That percentage is close to 10%, that they have issued only 10% of their paid up capital in the market, and for that issue they have become the number one company in terms of their capital in the market. And you also see that for issuing that percentage of share, they get some tax advantage, they will get
Yes,
some
sir.
tax rebate. Okay, so that is
Their
one motivation.
10% capital is 4,700 crore.
10%, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so for Grameenphone it is also same, they have issued 10%. Okay, so what can I do for you? I can show it to you from the DSC page. You see, for that you will see that how much share is within the hand of the sponsors, then you will get the picture. Okay, so in the Robi page, if you look at this shareholding, you see now, sorry, you see as of December 31, 2020, how much is in the hand of a sponsor director? More than 90%, right?
Yes, sir.
90.05%, 90.05% is in the hand of sponsor director. In the hand of financial market participants, who are the financial market institutions, only 2.42% now. And now you also see that the foreign does not hold anything as of this date, foreign category. But in case of public, this foreign is not the holding company of Robi. Recognize these are the foreign investors category. Okay, it's not Asiata or Bharati. It is this foreign means the foreign investors in the financial market, our stock market. Okay, so you see only public is holding how much? 7.53, and institute is holding 2.42. So if you sum up this, you will get only 9.95%, right?
Yes, sir.
9.95%. So it is less than how much? It is less than 10%.
Yes, sir, it is.
It is less than 10%, but actually they have issued the 10%. They have issued 10%. You see the 0.05%, 0.05%, it is in the hand of their employees. They have issued publicly, but it has been subscribed by their own employees. Okay.
So, previous year 18%.
Yeah. So other than the motivation from other issues, one of the motivation is they will be able to reduce their tax rate. Okay, from 45% to which rate?
40%.
40%. But in the year in which they have done this transaction, they will be able to reduce their tax rate by probably you see this 10%. One, they will be able to reduce their tax rate by 10%. If this is separate rule for public offering placement, 5% greater than 5%. In that case, their tax rate will be 40%. And additionally, if they issued how much? 20%. In that case, their applicable tax rate will be less than 10%. Not less than 10%. Sorry, it will get reduced. This will get reduced by how much?
4.5%.
This will get reduced by not 4.5%.
Sorry, 10% reduced to
10% actual.
Yes, sir.
It will get it will get reduced by 10%, which will be equal to 35%. And for which year only?
First year.
And what Robbie has claimed? Robbie has claimed that give me the benefit of having this 35% tax rate for next 10 years. But as per my knowledge goes, regulator has not accepted this claim. Okay. So let us continue for the corporate social responsibilities. We will talk about the corporate tax rate later when we'll go for solving a problem. And can you recall that we talked about the corporate social expenditure in one of our previous classes?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
We showed a problem.
Yes, sir.
And we also mentioned about the conditions you have to satisfy for getting the CSR. You
Yes,
have
sir.
to
Yes,
make
sir.
your employee salaries clear. You have to clear your income tax VAT payment. You can have to fulfill the rules according to the Bangladesh level law, and you have to submit all the documents supporting your CSR expenditures. You probably can recall from previous earlier class. Okay. Can you recall that what is the maximum allowable limit for CSR expenditure?
12 crore মতো বলছিলেন
12 crore, sir. হ্যাঁ।
12 crore. Thanks. 12 crore or 20% of total income.
জি স্যার
20% of total income. Between these two, which
which one is lower?
which one is lower? Which one is lower? So I feel that you went through the fields in which companies are supposed to, companies can spend their money for CSR and also can claim tax rebate. And you will also you can review the same thing from the assessment of companies chapter, that is the chapter 20. Not chapter 20, yeah, in the new text, that is the chapter 20. Probably in course outline it has been mentioned 18C from the previous year text. Okay, so in the remaining half an hour we will try to discuss about a problem of the company assessment. I believe that we will not be able to finish the problem, but we will try to see half portion of the problem so that you will have an idea that how company assessment is done. Okay, you see the PDF file, it has been extracted from your text, worked example 2.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the profit and loss account of Care Pharmaceuticals for the year ended on June 30, 2019 reports net income of taka 2 million, right? So first of all, what we need to do, we need to write down the net income disclosed by the company. So I'm just writing for rough work, it will not be a complete solution. Net income is 2 million disclosed by the company. Okay, as per profit and loss account. So what we have to do, we have to make some adjustment for what? We will have to make some adjustment for the expenses which are inadmissible. And if we see that some expenditures are truly expenditures, but they have not been subtracted when they are calculating this, what we need to do now? We have to add back or subtract some expenses which are admissible, but the companies has not subtracted when they are calculating the net profit. What we need to do?
Subtract করতে হবে তাহলে
We have to subtract, right? We have to subtract. Okay, then if it is like that, we have some income which has not been recognized by company when they are calculating this, what we need to do? We have to include those income,
Yes, sir.
right? And if it is such that there are some income which will not be part of the revenue income, which will be part of, say, which will be part of capital gain, or which will be part of some, say, which will be part of some other head, in that case we need to separate those income out from here.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's continue our discussion for the problem. Okay, now during the year, the company sold some of its pharmaceutical supplies that remained unused for a long time in the storeroom. The company sold the supplies at a loss of taka 150,000 as the expiry period is very close and charged such loss against current year's profit. Is it admissible? What do you think?
Admissibility তো হওয়ার কথা।
Obviously. So what company has done? Company has already charged such loss against what?
This
Against the
year's
current
profit।
year's profit. So what should we say?
So
This
এটাতে কিছু
profit
করার
has
দরকার
already
নেই।
been adjusted for
জি
what?
স্যার।
For this loss. So should we make any further
No sir.
task? We should not do anything more, right? Okay.
জি স্যার।
Next one. The company recovered taka 20,000 from bad debt which was written off in earlier year. What is the current year? June 30, 2019, right? We are right now in which income year? We are in the
1920.
1920 or 1819?
1819, sir.
1819, okay. So earlier year means earlier than the 1819 income year, okay. So during the earlier income years, how much bad debt was charged? This amount? No, charged was greater than this amount, but out of that charged amount, how much has been recovered in this year?
20,000.
20,000 has been recovered, and company has mentioned that this amount which has been recovered has been credited to sundry debtors account. You know, are you familiar with this account, sundry debtors account? Are you familiar with the sundry debtor account from your financial accounting?
স্যার এই নামে পাই নাই স্যার, বাট
এই নামে পান নাই?
এটা বাংলা কি?
বাট আমার মনে হয় স্যার এটা হচ্ছে আপনার যারা হচ্ছে মানে ওই যে কি বলে এটা, মানে মাথায় আসতেছে না কি বলবো,
বিবিধ
বাংলা
পাওনাদার।
আসতেছে না।
Okay, so without going for looking at the meaning of the meaning in different or meaning in Bangla, we just recognize it's accounts receivable. It's simply, what is this? It's accounts
receivable.
Accounts receivable, or simply receivables, right? It's
Yes, sir.
simply, it is simply receivables. Okay, so in financial reporting standards you will see the accounts receivable, not these debtors, sundry debtors. These are some kind of ancient terms used in the historical accounting text, or very old financial text, or very antique financial standards. Okay, whatever. So this is simply accounts receivable. Account receivable is shown in the income statement or in the financial position statement?
It's the financial position statement.
Financial position. So from here,
Financial.
sorry, yeah, statement of financial position. Okay, the thing is that we are not getting any indication that in how many accounts it will be included if it is recovered. Can you recall?
So it can be one or more.
স্যার দুইটা
At
সম্ভবত
least
স্যার
two.
ইয়েস স্যার
At least
অ্যাট লিস্ট
two
দুইটা
or four.
চারটা হইতে পারে স্যার
Okay. So we are not getting any
So
indication that
পয়েন্টটা
whether.
বুঝি নাই।
Sorry.
So পয়েন্টটা বুঝি নাই।
Point is that if you do any accounting adjustment in at least how many accounts you need to touch?
Yes, sir. At least two. One debit and one credit.
At least two. Okay. Now we are not getting any indication that whether it has been included in the income, right? Can you recall what should I say from your earlier learning?
স্যার এখানে রিটেন অফের কথা বলা হয়েছে আর্লিয়ার ইয়ারে।
Okay. That means still you are continuing some account receivable. You are continuously writing some bad debt.
Yes, sir.
Okay. What we used to do, if bad debt is recovered, we subtract here, or sorry for this. Okay. Alternatively, what could we do? We could write the recovered bad debt in the right side as an income without subtracting here. Both are same.
Yes, sir.
Both are same.
These are income, these are expenses. Okay. So we are not getting any indication that this recovery amount has been inserted here, right? But we are getting confirmed that it has been included in the statement of financial position as
accounts receivable,
right? It has been debited from the, okay, it has been credited in the account receivable in a sense that as it has been recovered, obviously which should go up?
Cash বাড়বে আবার এর
Cash
কমে
should
যাবে।
go up, and account receivable it has already been charged in the previous year. Okay. Okay, so if it is like that, in that case, what we need to do right now? We need to add it. We need to add this, or we do not need to do anything.
So এখানে তো বলছে it was written off in earlier year and was allowed by the tax authority. তাহলে এটা তো আগের বছরের সংক্রান্ত কোনো কাজ, এই বছর তো কিছু করতে হচ্ছে না সম্ভবত।
না এটাতে তো করা যাবে, ব্যাড ডেট না।
The bad debt what has been shown in earlier years 20,000, that was allowed by the tax authority. But now what is happening? In this year, you have been able to recover this 20,000, which was shown as bad debt in the previous year, right?
Yes, sir.
So in
So
that
I have
case
to
now,
add this back now.
right? So now you have to add it. You have to add it in the name of what? You have to add that. You like to add the bad debt recovered of how much?
20,000.
20,000. So what can you do? You can add it here, right? Okay, I'm not writing here, I'm just showing you. Okay.
Yes, sir.
For the sake of time, I'm just showing you the indication what we will do. Okay, I'm writing here 2. I mean that number 2 should become here, and number 1 is not our number 1 should have no adjustment. Okay, now number 3, unpaid bank interest of taka 80,000 to Bangladesh Development Bank Limited since income year 2014-2015, and such interest was allowed as allowable deduction during that year. Still such interest remains unpaid. So if you look at the inadmissible expenses section of the chapter what we are reading in the previous session, you would see that there is a specific number of years for which this kind of unpaid interest can be shown in the income statement. if it has been found that it is still unpaid. It is still unpaid. I can't recall exactly that after how many years you can credit it to your account, but the thing is that it has been now unpaid. Now we are in which year? 2018-19, right? We are now in
2018-19.
2018-19, and it was charged in which year?
So 14-15.
How many years have elapsed?
Three.
More than 3?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So far I can recall that if you have elapsed already 3 years after charging this interest, but you have not actually paid it, in that case you need to add back. You need to add back. Okay. How much? You can show it here that it is not actually now inadmissible expense category. It will be more appropriate if you show it as income now, because you have not paid it. That's why now you are recognizing it as income. Have you got it?
স্যার প্রিভিয়াস ক্লাসে ইন্টারেস্ট নিয়ে তো যতদূর মনে পড়ে আমার তো
we have
বলেন নাই।
not touched each and every point in previous class. We have mentioned some selected transactions or some selected points. Okay, if you see there is a point related to interest payable to the Bangladesh Development Bank Limited or unpaid bank interest. Okay, if you want to give me the reference, let me give me the reference page number, that from where I am trying to tell you that if there is an unpaid interest amount after several years, it will be, if it is still unpaid, it should be considered as income. Okay, let me open the chapter and I'm trying to give you the reference.
স্যার ইন্টারেস্ট অন বরোড ক্যাপিটাল আছে, কিন্তু এখানে কোনো ইয়ার মেনশন করা নাই।
Yeah, the mentioning was the regular interest expenditure, but there is a rule also. I'm not getting that rule right now exactly, that if say that was the interest payment for which year? 2014-15, but the rule is something like that. If it has been found that it has not been really paid in cash after this number of years, in that case you need to recognize that expenses as income. Have you got it?
জি স্যার।
Yeah, that is the rule. I will try to look at the specific number of years. I mean, for how many years you have to wait, or we have to wait. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So the point is here, still such interest remains unpaid. Okay. Okay. So the company has a trading liability with one overseas company to the tune of Taka 150,000, which has been totally waived by the overseas company under a special agreement during this year. This was a trading liability. Okay. I mean the Accounts payable? Is it?
Yes, sir.
In that case, if it has been waived, will it be considered as your income? What do you think? You have created accounts payable by when you
150
make credit purchase, right? When you
Yes,
make
sir.
credit purchase, what you do? You do expenditure, but on credit, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If it has been later found that the expenditure, what you have shown in the statement, you have not really incurred that expenditure. In that case, shouldn't it be considered as your income?
Yes, sir.
Okay. In that sense, it is income. Okay. So here we will try to see that. We will try to see here.
Income heading.
For what purpose? Waiver of the trading liability by a foreign company. Okay. Now, you can relate it with the previous class discussion. During the year, the company sold one equipment for taka how much? 180,000, which was purchased at a total cost of taka 130,000 and had a written down value of taka 90,000 on the date of sale. What is written down value? How can we get the written down value?
Sir, purchase price minus depreciation.
Okay.
বেশি দিও লাগবো।
Okay. What is the accumulated depreciation here? If the purchase price is 130,000, accumulated depreciation is 40,000. Okay. The company reports taka 90,000 as gain on sale of equipment in the credit side of the profit and loss account, right? So that means the company has charged 90,000 as a gain on sale of equipment in the current credit side of the profit and loss account. Just try to understand. Out of this total gain, can we make a breakdown of the revenue gain and the capital gain? This 90,000 is total gain. How this 90,000 is total gain? Because we see the written down value is 90,000 and we have been able to sell the equipment at a price 180,000. What is the gap between these two?
90,000.
90,000. That means the total gain is 90,000. So the company has shown the 90,000 as gain, total gain in which account? Profit and loss account. I mean their
Income
revenue
statement.
as they are in their revenue statement, revenue expenses statement, right? But you
Yes,
see,
sir.
there is out of this 90,000, there is a component of capital gain.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir. 50,000
How?
capital gain and 40,000.
Okay. How we have come up with that? The company has been able to achieve a capital gain because
More
the
than
selling
the
price
cost.
is selling price is greater than
Total cost.
Cost of the equipment.
okay. So how much is capital gain
50,000.
and how much is revenue gain?
The rest of 40,000.
Rest is 40,000. So in that case, what we need to do? What will be your suggestion to make adjustment here? How can we make adjustment here? 90,000 has been already added here in the profit.
Sir, we need to
Hmm.
deduct the 50,000.
50,000 deduct, right? From
Yes,
where?
sir.
From
So
the
from that 90,000, we need to deduct the 50,000.
Then we'll show the 50,000 in the name of
Inadmissible expenses.
it is inadmissible expenses, kind of.
স্যার ওই তো আমরা
Sir,
দেখছিলাম না
capital
লসটা
gain.
নাকি কতটা হেডিং দেখছিলাম স্যার একটা সেপারেট হেডিং এ
Okay. So what can we do? We can It has been, the company reports taka 90,000 as gain on sale of equipment in the credit side of profit and loss account. So our task is to allocate this as 50,000 as capital gain and 40,000 as a revenue gain. Okay. If it is such that it has been included in the 2 million, no, yeah, 2 million profit, in that case, we need to separate the 50,000 gain out, and we need to show the 50,000 gain as capital gain separately, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If it is like that, if we assume that it has not been included in the profit totally, in that case, how can we add 40,000 in the, we can add 40,000 in the, with the profit, and we can show 50,000 separately as capital gain. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let's continue. For due to a sudden fire, you can also, okay, due to a sudden fire on the factory building, the extended portion of the building is totally destroyed, and the compensation received from the insurance company, total taka, how much? 250,000. In addition, the company realized an additional sum of taka 30,000 by selling the scrap. So how much company has received in total? 280,000. The extension of the building was constructed at a total cost of taka 400,000, and depreciation charged to date amounts to taka 50,000. In that case, how much is written down value?
So 350.
350. So if it is the 350,000, the written down value, and company has been able to achieve how much in total?
280.
280.
Yes,
so
sir.
company has achieved any return, any revenue gain or capital gain?
No, sir.
Company has incurred
Loss.
loss. How much?
70,000.
70,000. Do you think this loss should be admissible? What
Yes,
do you think?
sir.
This loss should be
Admissible
admissible.
loss.
It should be, it should be listed here as admissible expenses. Okay. What will happen? The profit will come down for subtracting this.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's continue. The
স্যার
company,
এই পয়েন্টটা বুঝলাম না, একবার বলবেন?
which one?
লাস্টের পয়েন্টটা আর কি।
Insurance.
জি স্যার। স্যার
Okay.
এখানে 30,000 টাকা মানে প্রথম ইন্স্যুরেন্সে 2,50,000 টাকা পেলো, তারপর 30,000 টাকা এটা কিভাবে নিল? মানে এটা তো ইন্স্যুরেন্স কোম্পানি নিয়ে নেওয়ার কথা।
Okay, but there may be some exception that insurance company has, but from the insurance principles, we know that, what do we know? We know that if insurance company gives you full value for your loss, right?
জি স্যার।
In that case, the additional amount what will be receivable by you will be credited to the insurance company. Is it?
ওকে স্যার, এবার বুঝতে পারছি। এখানে তো
Okay.
টোটালি দেয় নাই আর কি।
Yeah, okay. Now, the company sold a scientific apertures used for scientific research for taka 80,000, which was originally purchased at taka 150,000 and fully depreciated. In that case, what is the written down value? What is the written down value?
Sir, 0.
0. Now, how much you have received?
80,000.
80,000
In that case, is there any capital gain?
টোটালি তো ক্যাপিটাল গেইন।
Total is capital gain. Can you recall the concept of capital gain?
No, sir. There is no any capital gain.
সরি স্যার, কোনো গেইন নাই, জাস্ট এটা প্রফিট।
No gain. Profit is not part of gain.
সরি
No
স্যার।
capital gain.
Sir, it's a revenue gain, sir.
Right. It is revenue gain. There is no capital gain. The total gain should be attributable as a Revenue gain. So it should
Yes,
be
sir.
included.
Totally revenue gain.
It should be included.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So it should be included where? As a
So in the
category,
income.
as an income, which has not been included yet, right?
Yes, sir.
It should be included here. Okay. Then the company had export quota for exporting garments to the European Union countries, as the company has recently changed the line of operation, switched from garments manufacturing to pharmaceuticals. It transferred the export quota to another garments manufacturer for a sum of taka 70,000. So it has sold its license. You see, it transferred the export quota for how much? 70,000. This income is not reported at well. What we have learned in the previous session? Can you recall?
So 3% revenue chart করতে হবে.
Of 3% of which value?
So 70,000, sir.
3% of the export value. Recall, 3% of the export value. It is not the export value. It is the, probably it is the transaction price of the export quota. I mean, you can relate it with the license, export quota license. Okay. But the exact rule was that it should be 3% of the export value. I mean, by having this license, how much total export revenue you are supposed to receive, of that amount you will have to pay 3%. Sorry, you have to show 3% as the assessable income. Okay, but we have not been given any assessable income. So the assumption, what can we make following the text solution, that is, we can assume that this 70,000 as total assessable income by transferring this export quota. Got it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we can show it in which category? You can show it as income. Okay, which has not been credited already. Okay, next one. The company's entitled initial depreciation taka 500,000 for new machinery installed and run commercial production during the year, but they didn't claim any initial depreciation. Okay. In that case, what should you do?
Deduct.
It is admissible, right? But we have not charged.
Yes, sir. Admissible
In that
expense.
case, we need to add expense here as admissible expenses. Okay. Given that this depreciation is within the limit of the depreciation allowed by the tax standard. Okay.
স্যার এটা কি মানে ডেপ্রিসিয়েশন কি কোনো স্কেডিউল থার্ড স্কেডিউল অনুযায়ী করব এটাতেও?
Yeah, but you are not you will not be given the third schedule in your exam, but you will be given sufficient information to make this reporting or to make this problem solved. Okay. But in real life, we need to explore what has been mentioned in the third schedule. Okay. So for today, we'll try to stop here. For remaining points, we will try to see together in the next discussion. Meantime, you can also look at these points by yourselves. We'll try to discuss together in the next session. So let me stop the recording here.